If there was one thing Dr. Ambedkar opposed, it was the Manusmriti. If there is one thing that RSS celebrated, it was the Manusmriti. The memory of Mahatma Gandhi became a lifafa in which anyone can put anything and just wrap it around. That appears to be happening with Dr. Ambedkar.
How is it that Ambedkar now comes to be invoked by almost every party?
Party that wants to do politics in the name of that religion wants to use him. So appropriation is the name of the game in politics. Those who actually have believed in Baba Sahib before he became so famous, before he became so lovely, before he became so acceptable, it is their duty to come out and say, no, that's not what Ambedkar was like.
Hello, viewers, and welcome to another episode of Deshkaal with Yogendra Yadav. This week on April 14th, we mark the 135th birth anniversary of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Around the country, several governments, including the union government and many political parties, they organized events to celebrate the occasion. Floral tributes were offered. There was a marathon. People recited the preamble to the Constitution. And one might say from all of this that, Ambedkar and his ideas are deeply relevant to contemporary politics. Taking a different view, however, is Yogendra Yadav, who has argued that Ambedkar and his legacy are in fact at risk of being turned into mere symbols. Yogendra ji, can you please tell us why you say this? Why do you see this risk?
Thank you, Pooja. We Indians are very good at these things. We turn every great person either into a deity, after that, no questions, or we keep them trapped into their own personal biographical social origins. So either we are debating whether Gandhi had really supported Bhagat Singh at that particular juncture or not. We are debating Ambedkar versus Gandhi and things of that kind. Or we are saying Gandhi ji, bus, nothing, whatever he said is fine. Both these are actually very poor reactions. And I suspect something similar is happening to Baba Sahib Ambedkar now. For a very, very long time, he was completely neglected by the entire ruling establishment. But post 1989, and now, especially in recent years, and even more so after 2024 election, now everyone wants to latch on to Baba Sahib. You could say, all right, a great man finally gets his due. But herein lies a danger. And the danger is that when everyone latches on to a thinker, a writer, a great man, then you actually spread that person too thin. Everyone owns him. And as a result, it becomes an empty symbol. Empty signifier is what literary critics sometimes call it. I use a very simple Hindi metaphor. That's lifafa. That's what happened to Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi became the legacy of Mahatma Gandhi, the memory of Mahatma Gandhi became a lifafa in which anyone can put anything and just wrap it around. That appears to be happening with Dr. Ambedkar. And for those who've taken Baba Sahib seriously, those who take his mission seriously, those who take his ideas seriously, those who take that politics seriously, those who take social justice seriously, this is not good news. This is appropriation. So my suggestion is that the only way to combat this kind of appropriation would be to rediscover the radical Ambedkar, the person who the ruling class found very uncomfortable. That uncomfortable Ambedkar, the radical Ambedkar needs to be brought back.
Can you expand a little on the radical Ambedkar that you talk about? And is it just the political class, elements of the political class who might be made uncomfortable by certain ideas? Or would that discomfort apply to a larger number of people who have bought into, the sainthood that is bestowed on public figures, including Ambedkar?
Both. I mean, it is true that many followers and all great people have their blind followers, which is quite useful, quite usual. In the case of Dr. Ambedkar, there's something very special about his deification, something that you almost don't feel like objecting to. I remember I went to Uttar Pradesh 2022 elections. I was just walking around and the usual thing, going to ordinary people, and I went to this house. not a political house, not a political leader, no drawing room. This was a very dilapidated, poor house. And there were three photographs. There was uh, Ravidas, the Mahatma Ravidas. There is Gautam Buddha, and there is B.R. Ambedkar. I really thought very few people in history can have that kind of stage. So yes, I mean, you almost don't feel like objecting to this kind of deification because that makes that poor person, that empowers the poor person. So that's true. At the same time, in the last 20 years or so, the kind of very routine, especially in the more informed circle, in the more academic circles, the kind of routine thing that has started, this is exactly what happened, as I said, to Gandhi. There was a whole Gandhi academic industry.
Right.
Gandhian studies was introduced as a department, which I thought was a
Right.
very poor idea.
Right.
All that produced very second-run scholarship and did not take Gandhi very seriously. In fact, that is what made Gandhi available for appropriation by those who were opposed to Gandhi's ideas. In Dr. Ambedkar, he caused deep discomfort to the rulers of this country, the entire political establishment of this time, from left to the right, found him unacceptable. Uh, and so, how do we recover that Ambedkar, the radical Ambedkar? One possibility would be, which is what many people do, go back to those political episodes in his life where he was at cross purposes with mainstream politics. Pune Pact being one of the major moments of that kind. I don't think we should try and reduce the political figures to their accident of birth, to the political trajectory that they took. I would like to go back to the founding principles. And when I go back to founding principles, I find a certain image of Dr. Ambedkar that we need to go beyond. What's the standard image? The standard image is someone who was a Dalit leader. How good we are at reducing all our great men and women to their castes, to their social background. Charan Singh becomes Jat, Baba Sahib Ambedkar becomes Dalit. So the image is a Dalit leader, an angry old man who who battled against caste system, perhaps justifiably. But that's all that he did. Now, that is completely untrue in the case of Baba Sahib Ambedkar. Yes, he fought against caste system. Yes, he thought it required nothing less than annihilation. But that came from a deeper philosophy.
Mhm.
His argument against caste system was not that it causes inequality. That was actually a small part of it. He thought that caste system actually militated against fraternity, maitri, which should be the ultimate ideal of a civilization. And caste system was bad because it did not enable that maitri to be realized. Baba Sahib and that's my argument is that Dr. Ambedkar should be seen as a theorist of democracy, a role in which most people have not seen him. And that's a pity that we've not recognized that. He was, in many ways, the only democratic theorist of India in the 20th century. For everyone else, for all the other great leaders of the national movement, national freedom was the principal object. Democracy came along with it as an accompaniment, as it were. They were not principally focusing on that. For others, socialism, communism was principal. Democracy was not so central. Dr. Ambedkar places democracy at the center of his imagination. People
Was
thought
this the
he
radical
was,
in
yeah,
him? Was this the radical in him? Like, is this why he was a radical thinker? Because he placed democracy above everything else, before everything
no,
else.
no. It is the conception of democracy that he had, which
Okay.
makes him so radical. Because you could make democracy central and have a very liberal democratic thought.
Mhm.
What we don't realize is that while Baba Sahib used the language of liberal democracy, his own understanding of democracy is very radical. He actually offers a definition of democracy. Actually, he says, "Let me offer you a definition." So and he says the definition basically is that it's a political order in which social and economic revolution can be brought without bloodshed. It's not procedure. It's not formal. It's not constitutional. It is about social and economic revolution, nothing less, that he wants. So it's not a procedural, formal understanding of democracy, which is what we inherited from Europe. He actually transforms the understanding of democracy, makes democracy, connects the fate of democracy to the fate of equality or inequality, to the fate of justice, to transformation of social order. Now, that's a very radical understanding of democracy. I don't find that in very many thinkers in the 20th century. Once he takes this step, then he says, okay, is India ready for democracy then? And he says, no, India is not ready. Democracy is not simply having a good constitution, which he himself had drafted.
Mhm.
But post the constitution, he actually makes fun of the constitution and he says, what can the constitution do? Constitution cannot change the country. You require a certain moral order. You require equality. And these preconditions are missing. Therefore, democracy is going to be very tough. And he says the point that he comes again and again is about minority protection. Now, we need to remember that for Dr. Ambedkar, minority did not only mean religious minority. It was not just Muslims that he was talking about. For him, Dalits, as we call them today, depressed classes in his vocabulary, were as much minority. But the one point that he makes again and again is that that if there is a tyranny of majority, it is no democracy. Tyranny of, and that's something we need to remember in today's context, because uh, Ambedkar is being invoked by those who want a majoritarian rule in this country, by those who do not believe one bit in social justice, by those who actually want to streamroll the constitutional guarantees. That's why we need to remember Dr. Ambedkar.
Right, right. So, I want to go back to this question of either vilifying or glorifying Ambedkar. And just why, what I want to ask is, why is it difficult to have a proper critical lens trained on Ambedkar? I mean, not just in the academic realm, but generally, because like you said, every great man, like there are certain ideas that may not square with our notion of their greatness. With Ambedkar, what are these ideas that, again, would make us uncomfortable today?
Uh, you're right. You see, in some ways, every great person, every great leader, every great thinker goes through that. The immediate response is either glorification or vilification, especially in the case of someone like Dr. Ambedkar, because he raised very uncomfortable questions that Indian rulers, and by rulers, I do not only mean political rulers, the class, the caste, those who ruled this country for hundreds and thousands of years, they did not want to hear this. He raised the uncomfortable question of caste. He raised not only untouchability, but the entire system of graded inequalities that
Right.
caste
Yeah.
implies.
Yeah.
He said, which was a very controversial formulation, he said the core of Hinduism is responsible for this. I don't personally agree with that assessment, but he said this was not a deformity of Hinduism. This is what Hinduism is. And if you therefore have to annihilate caste, you cannot do it within the Hindu social order. And he also said this project must take precedence, if necessary, over the battle for national freedom, which again was a very controversial position to take. But such was his complete dedication to this cause. And so articulate he was. You see, if Ambedkar was merely an angry man, the point we want, those who represent lower orders of society, poor, subaltern, women, Dalits, as long as they are angry and mad, no one really minds that. If they are reasoning, if they are rational, if they take recourse to your logic and do it better than you can do,
Mhm.
that's when people start becoming uncomfortable. That's what Ambedkar did. You see, what we forget is that Dr. Ambedkar was actually one of the best read persons of his time, not just best read Dalit. He was best read person of his time. He was exposed both, most Indians would go to UK and were exposed to a certain British tradition. Dr. Ambedkar went to US and
Yes.
then to LSE, had some of the best education of that time, which he utilized to the best. Most Indians of his time were not exposed to, say, someone like John Dewey. He was. So he brought a certain kind of training, a certain kind of logic, a certain recourse to modern rationality, which the Indian rulers found very difficult to respond to. So that's what made everyone so uncomfortable. And in a sense, it is that uncomfortable, that Ambedkar, which who made everyone uncomfortable, is what we need to remember and
Right.
recall.
Right.
In that context, I did want to mention, a book. This book came
Oh, the radical
about
ambition.
the radical Ambedkar. The book came out 7 years ago. The book started a conversation. It started a conversation to say, let's go beyond just deification or vilification. There's something deeper about Ambedkar that we need to understand. And if necessary, going beyond Ambedkar. What's wrong with that? In
Right.
fact, Ambedkar himself says this very, very beautifully. He says that the best tribute that you can pay to someone who has been your master, your guru, is to disagree with that person. When you disagree, you're actually paying a tribute to that person because you managed to. But that's not what the Ambedkarites do. Any comma, full stop of Dr. Ambedkar is the last word on something, just as it used to be with Marx for a certain kind of generation, or for Gandhi for another kind of generation.
Mm.
That's not what Dr. Ambedkar wanted. So
Mhm.
this book has made an opening. There are all other interesting stuff that's happening.
Right.
There's this essay that I really want everyone to read by someone called D.R. Nagaraj, one of our greatest intellectuals who passed away very young. The essay was called, um, uh, it is two kinds of reactions uh, to untouchability. And this essay was on Gandhi's reaction and Ambedkar's reaction. uh, uh, self Self purification versus self respect.
Okay.
It says Gandhi's response to untouchability is self purification. Untouchability is bad. We, upper caste Hindu, must purify ourselves by eliminating untouchability, by washing toilets, and so on. Ambedkar is not interested in your self purification. He's interested in self respect, which
Mm.
is a very different paradigm.
Yes.
That's where they begin. And interestingly, and the argument of D.R. Nagaraj, and the reason why I think that essay is so important, is that he says actually throughout their life, by being each other's opponents, Gandhi and Ambedkar end up transforming each other so completely. Ambedkar is towards the end religious and spiritual. And Gandhi, in the last decade, is such a trenchant critic of the caste order, not just of untouchability. So both of them end up transforming each other. And what happens as a result of that? So that opens a certain kind of reading of Ambedkar, which is very different from the usual reading of Ambedkar. And I think those clues need to be taken forward to discover. And what I'm suggesting is to focus on democracy as a site of Ambedkar's thinking, and that's where we can possibly find a very radical Ambedkar that we can learn from, and a Ambedkar who has lessons for us today. Today, when we see the dismantling of our constitutional order, this is when we need Ambedkar, a very radical Ambedkar.
Right. So, for such a radical thinker, then how is it that Ambedkar now comes to be invoked by almost every party today? In fact, the figure himself, if not his ideas, have become so mainstream that somebody like a Kunal Kamra holds up the constitution. Uh, and there are movies being made about Ambedkar and his legacy, how the constitution came to be written, etc. Isn't there a little bit to celebrate about this also? Isn't this also in some ways a positive development?
Of course, it's positive. I mean, Kunal Kamra has very good reasons to be able to hold the constitution. I would say, I mean, if there is a battle for freedom of expression, Kunal Kamra symbolizes it. But yes, I do worry when BJP gets up and starts celebrating Ambedkar. I'm not surprised. Please remember, we'll take other examples. Bhagat Singh.
Mhm.
Everyone celebrates Bhagat Singh. Everyone remembers that hat
Yeah.
and that clean-shaven photograph, which is very unusual photograph for him. But everyone, so Bhagat Singh is reduced to that. Most people who celebrate Bhagat Singh do not know that he had written a book defending atheism
Yes.
against all religions,
Yeah.
that he was a communist.
Yes, very
He
much
was
so.
not
Yeah.
just a leftist, he was a
Yeah.
Bolshevik communist.
Yes.
So Bhagat Singh has been deluded of all those things and becomes a very, I mean, this is what I mean by empty signifier. It's a
Mm-hmm.
lifafa. Like you have these uh, t-shirts, very expensive t-shirts of Che Guevara.
Ah.
I have no idea who they are celebrating. In South India today, everyone talks about Periyar.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, if you were to quote things from Periyar, which I cannot quote on this show, they would be scandalized to know what he actually said. So, in a sense, that's what happens with history, that we, in a sense, frame those photographs. These leaders, their images become photographs, which lend themselves to framing. And once you frame that very well, you ensure that almost nothing transmits from them to us. Then they become empty, figures available for very empty adulation. Look at the relationship between the BJP or the BJP RSS tradition and Dr. Ambedkar. I mean, there's nothing that connects. You
Right.
could accuse Congress of not giving Dr. Ambedkar the kind of respect that he deserved before Constituent Assembly. But in the case of RSS BJP, I mean, they did not even think he was worth ridiculing. I mean, they were so opposed to him,
Mm-hmm.
and let alone not giving respect. I mean, Ambedkar stood for everything that Congress, that BJP RSS did not stand for. They actually believed that let's not forget that RSS believed the Indian Constitution was so alien that RSS wanted the Indian Constitution to be based on Manusmriti.
Mm-hmm.
If there was one thing Dr. Ambedkar opposed, it was the Manusmriti.
Mm-hmm.
If there is one thing that RSS celebrated, it was the
One more.
Manusmriti.
Yeah.
And today they want to use him, they want to appropriate him, they want to, and if there's something Dr. Ambedkar attacked, rightly or wrongly, it was actually the Hindu religion.
Mm-hmm.
Please remember, his opinion was that it is the core principles of Hinduism
Yeah.
which have caused caste system. And today, the party that wants to do politics in the name of that religion wants to use him. So appropriation is the name of the game in politics. It's like whichever currency becomes important, then everyone wants to acquire that currency. And therefore, those who actually have believed in Baba Sahib before he became so famous, before he became so lovely, before he became so acceptable, it is their duty to come out and say, no, that's not what Ambedkar was like. That's not what Bhagat Singh was like. That's not what Mahatma Gandhi was like.
Mm.
And that's a battle of ideas that must
Right.
take place. And
Right.
that battle, I think we really must do in the case of Ambedkar. We need to go to Ambedkar 2.0
Mm-hmm.
because a certain, a certain very, I mean, I can understand till 1980s and early 1990s when Ambedkar was neglected for
Mm-hmm.
a certain adulation to take place. Now that a certain acceptance has taken place, now is the moment to actually get more specific, get
Mm-hmm.
into the depth of what he said, what he wrote,
Mm-hmm.
and in a sense, protect him,
Mm-hmm.
defend him from
Right.
the appropriation to which he is being subjected.
Right. Right. So, you've taking off from here, and also, I know you said that, and I agree with you that the Ambedkar cannot just be reduced to a leader of the Dalits. But if we are looking at Ambedkar 2.0, if we are looking at this battle of ideas, of this battle to reclaim his legacy, etc., one would imagine that organized Dalit politics would have a significant role to play here. So, can you use this moment to reflect on the state of Dalit politics today?
It's sad. I do not once again think that that's the only place where this has happened. If you look at Gandhi's followers after Gandhi, if you look at socialist politics after Lohiya, or if you look at Dalit politics post Ambedkar, you have similar situations. I must say, though, that Kashi Ramji, I take him differently. Kashi Ram was a great thinker, someone who's not been respected as thinker because he understood. He did not speak very much about Baba Sahib all the time. He did not get into the ritual celebrations and puja archana of Ambedkar, but
That
he
is
was a true
interesting.
Ambedkar. He was a true follower. He took those ideas forward. But post Kashira, Dalit politics that we see today is really does very little justice to Dr. Ambedkar. And the tragedy is this, that Dr. Ambedkar was much ahead of his times. There's absolutely no doubt about it, simply because of his level of awareness, his way of thinking, the sharp intellect that he had. He was much ahead of his time. Unfortunately, those who do politics in his name are much behind their own time. So in some ways, even what's almost nearly 70 years after his death, Ambedkar's thought may have been ahead of what his followers, many of his followers, say today, because there is a tendency to reduce Ambedkar only to, others want to reduce him to Dalithood, and Dalit's leadership is very happy to equally reduce him to Dalithood, just as it happened with Charan Singh, reduced to Jat, and a certain kind of leadership, very happy to make him a Jat. Uh, so that reduction has taken place, as a result of which Dalit politics has really not moved forward. Look at the recent example of subclassification.
You're right.
Someone like Dr. Ambedkar, who argued for who understood caste system to be a system of graded
Yes,
inequalities,
yes, right.
gradations. He would have had no difficulty in understanding that within Dalits you have different kinds of inequalities, and that if there is sufficient evidence to suggest that those inequalities, differences have reached a certain point, maybe we should come up with a mechanism. But look at the reaction of much of the Dalit leadership. They opposed it, and they opposed it. So unfortunately, and then the impression that goes out, that may not be correct, but that's the impression that goes out, that these are not even Dalit leaders. These are leaders of a certain caste and community within Dalits.
Yeah.
Now, that certainly does such gross injustice to the legacy of Dr. Ambedkar. We must also not forget that besides caste, he was someone who was reflecting on economy, someone who was thinking about law and constitution, someone who was writing about religion and spirituality. These are the great thinkers that we had in our country at some point. So compared to what the legacy that he left behind, the legatees have not really done well, and that's why I so welcome recent attempts to think afresh, to discover something in Ambedkar, if necessary, by going beyond what the given orthodoxy is, if necessary, by revising some of Ambedkar's own formulations.
Right, right. Thank you so much, sir. That is actually another great conversation that we've had. Ambedkar is, of course, a topic of great continuing relevance and importance. And like you said, the radical in Ambedkar shouldn't be lost in all of this conversation that we do have about him today. Viewers, thank you again for joining us for this video. We are here every week. Please like and subscribe. You'll get the notification. In fact, Yogendraji, you've written your column this week on Ambedkar, and viewers who want to read the column, who want to understand in greater depth Yogendra ji's arguments, and also you referred to the book and the essay that you mentioned in the article this time. The link is in our caption. Please do click through and read the article. Thank you once again, and thank you, Yogendra ji.